Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about this new build that I've been running. It's basically a brain dead build for anybody who's looking to take a rogue quickly as an alt character from 0 to 50. Okay, now this specific build is intended for players who are playing solo, like the guys who aren't being rushed by their buddies through the dungeon method from world tier 1 to 4 quickly. If you don't have anybody to play with, this is ideally the best thing you're going to do with a rogue. Okay, so let's just talk about exactly why this is such a good build and why I've been running it. Okay, let's go into the skills and abilities first. So with the abilities, we're going to start right at the top. Our first skill is puncture. Okay, so we're only taking 1 point in this, and we're taking enhanced puncture, and finally fundamental puncture. This is the important thing that we want. Puncture now throws 3 blades, and hitting an enemy with at least 2 blades at once makes them vulnerable for 2 seconds. We want to work off vulnerability. I mean, surprise, surprise, every single build pretty much out there uses that. So we're going to be doing that as well. We're going to be using vulnerability with puncture. Okay. Now our main skill is Barrage. Okay. Now Barrage isn't the greatest thing, after level 50, after level 70. It isn't, the greatest meta build for endgame, but for leveling, it is perfect. It is perfect for this brain dead build that we're doing right over here. So we're going to max out Barrage. We're going to put 5 points into it, and then we're going to take Enhanced Barrage, obviously, because it works off of vulnerability. So you get a ricochet chance if something is vulnerable. And then finally, Improved Barrage. Every third cast of Barrage makes enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. So this is another source of vulnerability that we're doing right now. Okay, so from then on, we're going to go to the agility skills. We're going to get 1 point in Caltrops. So Caltrops lets you leap backwards. Here, let me show you. It lets you do this. You throw these Caltrops on the ground, and the Caltrops themselves, they will deal damage to enemies and slow them for 53%. You can improve this further, but I don't think there's a point. Ideally, we're doing this kind of like a way to distance ourselves from enemies. This is the primary goal here. Also here, look at this. So you have 5+% critical strike chance against enemies inside your Caltrops. Double this amount against vulnerable enemies. So we're working with vulnerability. So this brings our critical strike chance up by 10%. Okay. Next skill we're going to take is Concealment. Vanish from sight, gaining an advanced form of stealth for 4 seconds that will not be removed by taking damage. Okay. The other one, what else we're going to take? We're going to take Enhanced Stealth, obviously, and then this is another one that we want. The skill that breaks Concealment always makes enemies vulnerable for 6 seconds. So this is another source of vulnerability for us. We only need 1 point in Concealment. This skill is your get out of jail card. So when you activate it, you go invisible like this, and no one can see you. This is really good, helps you get you out of sticky situations. So this, as well as the Caltrops, helps you avoid being crowd controlled by the enemies, avoid being stunned, avoid being just, overall destroyed by mobs of enemies. So we're only going to take 1 point in Concealment. Then we're going to go into the Imbuement section. And here we're going to take Shadow Imbuement and Poison Imbuement. Okay, now ideally we're going to max out both Shadow and Poison. Right now I'm only level 30, so I've maxed out Shadow first. But let's start talking about why we like Shadow more than Poison originally. So Shadow imbues your weapons with festering shadows. Your next 2 imbuable skills deal shadow damage and infect enemies for 6 seconds. Infected enemies explode on death. That is what we want. That is the number 1 thing we want. So we're going to take the Enhanced Shadow Imbuement and then this. Shadow Imbuement's primary explosion makes enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. Again, vulnerable, vulnerable, vulnerable. Everything we do makes enemies vulnerable. Okay, so this all synergizes together really, really well. We're going to take Poison Imbuement as well, which gives us some poison damage. And poison imbued skills have up to a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning. That's fine, but basically we're going to use poison imbuement when our cooldown is happening for shadow imbuement, because shadow imbuement is just so much better. It makes everything explode on the screen. Now, beside it, we're also going to take 1 point in Shadow Crash so that we can access this. Each time you kill an enemy with shadow damage, you generate 30 energy. this will help keep the uptime higher for your barrage, basically. So you're going to use your shadow imbuement, and then you're just going to start flinging your barrage at everybody, destroying everybody, and regaining your energy back. It really does work quite nicely. From the ultimate skills, I didn't take anything. I don't think I need it right now. This build worked very well without it so far. What I did take was this, Innervation, up to a 30% chance to gain 8 energy. Alright, so this is again helping keep the uptime with how much barrage we can keep casting over and over and over. And obviously the last thing we got is Precision. Critical strikes with marksman skills grant you precision. You gain 4% increased critical strike damage per stack, up to a maximum of 20%. When you reach maximum precision, your next marksman skill is a guaranteed critical strike that deals 40% increased critical strike damage and consumes all the stacks. Really, really good. Synergizes really, really well. Now, why do I like this build? Because you don't really need any aspects for it. And that's huge, because there's not a lot of builds that you can say, you know, you don't need a lot of aspects for it and you're going to do really good damage early on. So right now I'm level 30 and we're in the scattered hall. So if you look in the top right corner, it says level 35 plus. We're able to clear level 35 plus content, 5 levels above this early on with pretty much nothing on us. So we do have some aspects here, but they don't do very much right now. We're just kind of throwing them on there to help us out. Like, you know, basic skills gain 23% attack speed. This is kind of nice because it synergizes with our puncture, right? We can make things vulnerable a little bit quicker. Similarly, we can also gain our combo points, because combo points is what we're going to be using for our specialization for this build. And yeah, so let's just go into some gameplay and just show you exactly how this works. So we're going to pop Shadow Imbuement and then just go to town on everybody here. Pop some concealment when we need to get out of it. Some caltrops to slow them down. And there we go, we just cleared a mob. Like, we do still take damage doing 5 levels above, but we're also dishing out a lot of damage. Way more than you would think you'd be dishing out. Look at all those explosions from Shadow Imbuement. Just working really, really nicely. It synergizes very well. And this is a very beginner-friendly build. This took me from level 1 to level 30 in 4 hours. Now, obviously, this, you know, can't compete with the method of somebody running you through the capstone dungeons and taking you to world tier 4 quickly, right? You can get from level 1 to 50 in 1 hour with that method, basically. But this can help solo players who don't have anybody else. They can do that just as well. Okay, it's not 1 hour, but still, going from 1 to 30 in 4 hours is pretty good. Right, so I am going a little bit slower with this mob, but I haven't died. I popped a couple potions. But look at how much experience I've gained just in like 5 minutes since we've been talking. Alright, this build is really, really good. Highly recommended pretty much for anybody who's looking to make an alt character. The one other thing I would say is, let's talk about maybe some aspects that you can add on here that might help you out. So let's see what aspects I've gone on here. So this one on your weapon, Barrage's arrows have a 30% chance to split into 2 arrows when they ricochet. This is pretty good, but I didn't use it for a really long time. I only recently got this because that's when I just did the dungeon in Hawazar. So for pretty much 25 levels, I didn't have this at all. So it is nice, it helps boost the damage a bit, but it is not necessary. Because you're making everybody vulnerable the entire time, and then you're exploding people with the shadow imbuement, you do not need any kind of aspect to help you out early on, unlike other builds. This build is perfect all on its own without anything else. So you can see, guys, I'm really doing a lot of damage here, and there's not much to this build, you know? I'm not optimized at all, but I am tearing people up 5 levels above me, and because of that, I'm gaining a ton of experience, right? So I'm gaining pretty much a level every 10-15 minutes right now in the level 30 area. Alright, guys? So if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will catch you guys next time.